Hello and welcome back to the Student Hub Live. OK, this session is all about volunteering with the OU. So we've got some widgets we'd like you to fill in, please. I'd be interested in volunteering. Yes, no, unsure. Do you volunteer or have you ever volunteered for the OU? What volunteering work have you done or are currently involved with? Now, this one, with the 3 boxes, remember that you can put 1 to 3 things in there, but you have to fill each box. So if you can't think of more than 1 or 2 things, just put a full stop in there or your results won't send. And are you a technology optimist or a technology pessimist? So fill those widgets in for us. The chat's been moving really fast as well. So I'd just like to remind you there's a little pin button that you can press to stop the chat. So if there's something that you've missed or a link you'd like to pick up, you can do that as well. And there's different layouts that you can use to adjust your screen so that the chat is bigger or smaller. So play around with that and get the right setup for you. OK, this session we're going to take a look at volunteering and I'm joined by Katharine Reedy and Elizabeth Ellis and Stephanie Stubbins. Now, Katharine and Liz, you run the Learning and Teaching Innovation Curriculum Design Student Panel, what a mouthful, which was set up in July last year. And it's about getting students actively involved in the curriculum at an early stage. And Steph, you're a disabled student and you volunteer for the OU Students Association. And you've been involved with lots of different types of volunteering and indeed are coming back to talk to us a bit later as well today. So welcome. So what are some of the range of ways that students can get involved with volunteering for the OU?
OK, I think maybe over to Steph first for that.
So I've done quite a bit of volunteering for the association, but I also started volunteering with the Open University. I've been to workshops, focus groups, been involved with consultations. I've had a chance to test the website for accessibility. The one thing I've found with the OU is that it's open to anybody to volunteer. If you've got any health needs, reasonable adjustments are made. You can do it online. There's different roles that you can do online or you can do them face-to-face.
How did you get involved with this? Because I was talking to Nicola from the library who was explaining before that there are these student panels and some of them you have to, get an invitation for because they balance them depending on the various demographics, etc. So how did you get involved?
The Open University Students Association actually put out a call for anybody who wanted to come along to an event at the campus, and I actually went because I think I'm going on campus. I want to see what this is all about.
Lots of people want to come and see the library.
So that's how I started. I also went to the consultations which were online, and I've also done the face-to-face. That's an opportunity to get your student voice heard, and you find out a bit more about how the Open University is put together.
OK, brilliant. So would you be able to run through this panel as well to fill us in? Because students really want to participate, but it's difficult to know what to do.
Yeah, so where the panel really came from and the Curriculum Design Student Panel is really quite a mouthful. We could go back and change that, I wish, a little bit.
Sort of abbreviation.
No, but I think it's also quite important because that really is what it's about, is curriculum design. And what we mean by that is, so the kind of where Katharine and I work, we're both working sort of more behind the scenes. We're kind of involved in the design and development of the materials that we use, the systems that we use and things like that. And we historically don't have we're not able to easily access our students' voices for the kind of work that we want to do. And what we wanted was a more straightforward, and that's legitimately because everybody make sure that all of our students are protected time-wise and everything, but also we wanted to be able to quickly and easily be able to ask our students something around what we're developing or designing, an early question. We wanted to be able to create a real sort of partnership feeling with our students. So we came up with this panel, and we started last year with nearly 500 students, and this year we have nearly 1,000 students, all of whom volunteered their time up to 4 times a year, sometimes a little bit more, to take part in different types of activities. And that is both for us to form a relationship with them and for them to have a voice in the design of our materials and our systems, and for us to genuinely get a feel for actually an evidence-based approach to what we do rather than making assumptions that we know about them, and also for students to get to know us as well.
And is that why it's important that it's representative so that you don't have this bias of lots and lots of people wanting cake all the time, for example, that could really skew the results?
Well, and we do, that's so we go out it's a randomised sample of students. So this year it's a randomised sample of students, and we get they volunteer back. So there is a certain amount of inherent kind of these people who already are keen to have a say, but we also have students who loved the panel so much last year that they came back to carry on being a volunteer this year, and we're hoping for that again when we start recruiting for the next round in December.
Fantastic. Well, we asked you at home what you thought. Would you be interested in volunteering? 53% said yes. Nobody said no, and 47% said they're not sure. But only 10% have ever volunteered for the OU. We also asked what kind of volunteering work people have done. Should we take a look and see what everyone said? Family centre, charity shops, Nun, youth club, Greyhound charity. Oh, lovely. Open day bookstall, Arthritis Association, curriculum design, refugee advisor, reading buddy, kids events, charity shop, none but interested, singing for elderly. Oh, some wonderful student consultation, help. All sorts of really varied things there that people have found. HJ and Michelle, what sorts of things are people talking about in terms of finding volunteering rewarding?
We just had a chatting about volunteering being a great way to learn as well, and we're filling in our widgets, so we're not sure. Jordan's definitely not an IT person as well, so we are getting ahead with that a little bit as well. But we do like to see the opportunities that USA have to get involved as well, and we got the links in the chat because we know there's a societies fair as well, isn't there, which is another way to get involved.
And Fran has raised a point about community and how how volunteering makes her feel a part of the community, and I know Stephanie has a lot to say about that too.
Yeah.
So I'm Vice President Community for the Students' Association, and we encourage students to be more engaged. There's also volunteering opportunities. One of them I've actually joined as an extra role, which is a Central Committee representative. So I will be sitting on a Board of Studies and also on a Governance Committee. Any student can go for this type of role and is actually sitting on OU committees, which is a brilliant experience. So
I hope you're managing to fit your study in as well with all this volunteering.
I've started, I'm ahead.
So, Steph, tell us then about the benefits of being involved in some of these things. I mean, you're sitting on some boards. This must involve a lot of papers to read and a lot of things that I guess might be sort of internal, I guess, to the Open University, some of the processes and structures and things like that. But the student voice is really important to hear. How do you communicate what's important to students and represent them in some of these things, like the Board of Studies, for example?
I think because you're a student, you are around other students, you hear what students say. Yeah. So when you go to one of these sort of committees, you've already got an idea of the things that are positive and if there's any issues. But when you're in the room at a committee or even at a workshop, you feel like you're there for everybody else. That you're, especially because you might have 5 students and there's a lot of OU staff there, you're there to represent all the other students that couldn't come. Yeah. I'll just tell you about my first experience. I went to a student engagement workshop. I was a bit nervous. I thought I was going to be feeling odd in the room. I thought I'd be overwhelmed. When I went into the room, all the students were separated and I thought this is a bit strange. So there's just one student on tables here and there. I was really welcomed by the staff at the table. There was a facilitator who made me feel comfortable. And I just enjoyed the experience. Another plus side was I heard from other universities. They were attending because it was a student engagement workshop. And the whole feeling that I had when I left was I felt like I'd gained a lot from it. But also being that student in the room, the staff at the table and the room, they really enjoyed the feedback that you can give by being a student in the room.
Because we don't have many students on campus, like wandering around, much to our dismay, because it's really lovely when students do come up. And of course, anyone is welcome to come up to the OU. So if you are interested in coming to the library or just to visit the campus, then you must do so. But it's really nice to be able to hear students' voices. And I wonder if you can sort of talk us through this panel and in particular what happens with learning design, what sorts of things people can feed into other than, representing student voice in that sort of way at committees, because you're looking at quite specific areas, aren't you?
Well, yeah, and really with learning design, it's about keeping students at the very heart of what we're doing and thinking about the process of learning, how students will engage with the materials, what the experience will be for them. So So that's really the heart of learning design, I guess. And the activities that students can get involved with through the panel, I mean, there's large and small activities really. So, and it's very much about bridging the gap between between staff and students, given that it's distance learning and we want to make the distance smaller. So in a face-to-face setting, it might be that a teacher after their class would ask students something like, you know, I'm thinking of doing this in my teaching. What do you think of it? You know, just give your opinion. And of course, it's much harder to do that at the Open University because there is a great community, but it's at a distance.
And it's a very diverse community as well, because people have very, very different experiences and learn very differently, which further complicates matters.
Yes, so it's about lessening that gap really, and the sorts of activities it can be. It could be a consultation around teaching models, might be a survey quite sort of large scale, but it's also the sort of regular, ongoing, small activities. We have an online space called We Learn, which is where these small activities are hosted, and our technology-enhanced learning designers who work closely with module teams to sort of create the online learning experience for students. They can sort of put up an activity that they're working on in the early stages and get student input. They'll ask questions. They'll say, OK, we're thinking about having a module might have this or this theme, and we want, you know, what does this mean to you? Does this make sense, or do you think it should be different? Or it might be about planning studies time, keeping track of workload. It might be about skills, reflecting on skills. So there's all sorts of kind of online activities that people are working on, and it's about getting that student input at a really early stage before the thing is made. So students are actually feeding in when it matters at the right moment.
Do students know that we really, really want them to participate? I mean, you send out some invitations to some of these panels. I've had some before, and then all of a sudden I've realised that actually, you know, I think, oh, I've just been sent an email, everyone's been sent an email, I'm not going to do anything because I'm busy and I'm behind, or I'm this, that and the other. So for the students who do get invited to join these, what sort of take-up do you get?
So for the types of activities, some of our larger activities, so if we've got 1,000 students in this year, and we don't want to go much more than 4 times a year for very intensive activities, mostly because we don't want this to impinge on people's study time. And we know how time poor our students are, so that's really important to us. But an activity is usually going to take about 45 minutes, and we will go out to anywhere between 60 and 100 students, and then from that we actually get a really decent response rate. We may get up to half of that, and we almost always get an email from somebody going, I couldn't do it this time, but I'll do it next time. And that feels like we're creating that relationship between that. But also we try and close the loop, so rather than just send out a survey and for our students to never understand that they had any impact on what we do, we have a commitment that if you take part in an activity, you will hear from us again to say, this is what we did with the results of what you...
this is brilliant, so you can see the change.
Yeah, so for instance, one of the activities that we've done is a calculator, and our students they ran through a scenario with them, they tested the calculator, and they provided us with feedback, and that feedback immediately went to change the calculator for the next presentation of that module. So those students will have known that they had a direct influence on the fact what the next group of students would have seen in a live presentation. And I think you can't underestimate the importance of that, because it is, it's about ownership.
Well, also it's a very academic process. I've just been writing something and I've actually just emailed it out to about 4 colleagues who I really value their opinion. I've said, could you just sense check this? Because I think it's really sensible. But, I just want you to sort of check it all makes sense and is in a logical order. So this sort of idea of peer review, of being able to input on things is a very important skill to learn. And feeding back is also a really worthwhile thing, because you're not just giving information, you're actually looking at it from a different perspective and therefore learning yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think skills development is Katharine's particular area as well. So,
Well, yes, I think students do have the opportunity to develop some important skills, and obviously, if everybody sort of comes with their existing skills and experiences, but yes, definitely being able to feedback and sort of evaluate and analyse OU learning and give an informed opinion based on their experience. I think those are all very, very valuable skills, and we know that people do sometimes use them on their CVs or in annual appraisal if they're at work, that kind of thing. So there's all sorts of ways that you can benefit from volunteering.
Yeah, and in particular giving feedback, because often you need to be constructive by default, and that can really sort of help shift your thinking, because you can't just go, this is bad, because no one's going to take that seriously. You need to sort of be clear about what might be improved, and it sort of allows you to contextualise your thoughts. And I think that can really sort of shift your own way of looking at evidence in your studies.
But I think as well related to that is I don't know, I think sometimes if you're just responding to surveys as well, is you forget that, I mean, we can sometimes forget, although we don't want to, but especially when you're busy and you're trying to create the content and trying to create good learning experiences, it's hard. Sometimes students become an amorphous mass of people, and we have to remember that you are individuals, and we try and remember that you're individuals, we really do. But also that we are individuals trying to do a job, and we're wanting to do the best possible job that we can. And I think sometimes that's really important to kind of remember that there are real people on both sides of that conversation.
No, absolutely. Well, everyone's talking about volunteering, and to express their individuality, they're talking about what music they like listening to when they're studying. Let's just take a quick trip to the hot desk. Michelle and H.J.
Should I start with music or clubs?
Oh, well, we've got lots of exciting stuff, haven't we?
Well,
That's the problem.
I'm mad about music. When I first started studying, it had to be so silent. And actually, as I've progressed with my studying, I'm getting used to listening to music. And we've got Fran, who liked instrumental music, and Jordan said, really like film music, but so distracting. And I don't know if any
Is that when the film's on, though, Jordan?
Well, that's a good point. I don't know whether can we say film names?
Yeah.
Because La La Land, oh my God, I get that music going in the background and I'm dancing while I'm studying. And then Claire was talking about Harry Potter film music.
And H.J., you like the How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack, don't you?
I do. I really like it. But Melanie's not so sure about the rave music while studying. I think I agree with that. That's a bit distracting. But
have a silent rave then, Melanie.
Yes, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
And Amy Jane,
keyboard too.
Amy Jane likes piano
OU.
music as well while studying.
Really
I can see how
nice.
that's very relaxing. And Si's just had a phone call from a tutor to introduce herself. So that's really good. And she's going to a tutorial next week, which is exciting.
How exciting. And it's a bit scary too, though, I think, the first tutorial sometimes.
But we've been chatting about societies as well, which is really exciting. So Deborah belongs to the Psychological Society and the Right Club as well.
And Ruth said she's starting a new society. So, Ruth, if you could tell us what that is. But I know Stephanie has recently started a new society as well.
Have you?
Yeah, we've just launched the OU Business Associates Society, and we've just recently been affiliated with the Students' Association, so we're official now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I think, because I do quite a bit with the Open University Business School and the Law School, and we had a moot on with the Law Society. Yeah. They're brilliant. They get involved with these fab mooting activities, which are great. So it's really exciting. What's in store for students then with the society?
Well, we've been talking with the OU Business School and with the faculty. I had a meeting yesterday with some of the faculty, and we're looking to do some work together, but at the moment, we're trying to find out what students want from us. We had our first Freshers event yesterday, which was all day. It was just a drop-in session. And we're working on building a website as well. So lots happening.
Brilliant. And, of course, you've got some great expertise with marketing and
yes.
all that sort of stuff as well. That's really exciting. Excellent. Steph, how can students find out about some of the societies? I know that we're talking with the Students' Association a little bit later today, but just to tell people who might have other things to do.
OK, there's a new Students' Association website on oustudents.com. And you can go under community and find societies listed, and it gives you a full range of the different societies that are there. If you're interested in creating a society, there's a web address on that page. Or if you're just interested in finding out what's out there, then go. But we've also got something else we're launching, which is clubs.
Right.
We've got a test club called OU Make Club, which is students that like making things, obviously. I make a mess, so I've joined.
Cakes?
Messy, yeah, making messy cakes.
Yeah.
And we're looking for any students out there that don't particularly want to create a society which could be quite formalised, but want to have some sort of themed or topical gathering, we've actually launching clubs this week.
Yeah. And Cinnamon's coming along later, and she's involved with the Right Club, which is fantastic. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we've got clubs and society. What's the difference between a club and society? Society sounds a bit more formal.
It is. You've got a committee, you've got funding available, you come along to conference and you set up stalls, you tend to be more formalised, whereas the clubs are just people meeting together and discussing what they love. I mean, the Mate Club, we've only got a Facebook group at the moment, and we've got Students' Association staff as well as students on there, all showing all these different things that they make, from cutting up paper to crocheting seems to be a good thing.
Cutting up their TMA.
yeah.
Excellent. Now, you've got some interesting things here. What do you want to show us about these various bits of paper?
So our most recent activity was where we gave every student on the panel the opportunity to create their own student profile. And the reason for this is this is something that we go through in learning design workshops when a module is starting to be created. We run a workshop and we get staff to draw up student profiles. And these are not just in general, but it's think of a specific student. But actually, sometimes staff struggle to do that. And so what we wanted to do...
What do you mean by a student profile? Because we've been talking about the profiles if you have a disability yesterday. Is it the same thing?
Well, it's everything about the student, really. So it's their name, their age, their background, their living circumstances, their study experience, their tuition likes and dislikes, their study skills.
These?
And these are used in the design of learning at the Open University. So people, module teams who are creating learning, it's to just help us all really focus on who we're designing for.
So it's almost like being able to visualise some examples of the sorts of students who might be approaching the module, so that they can bear in mind the diverse learning styles, etc.
Yeah. It's just keeping in mind who are we designing for? Who are the likely people who are going to be taking this module, for example?
They're hypothetical profiles, are they?
Well, in the context of a workshop, yes, but we wanted to make them real and more authentic. So we put out the call to our panel and said, please create your own student profile of your actual life and your circumstances, why you're studying, your career motivations. We've even got a little bit about the library on there, your expectations of the OU library. It's just to sort of have a reality check, really, to have a sense of who people are.
Do they fill them in?
Yes, we've had a really great response.
I know OU students are always very good at this.
Not at all surprised, no, but we had a really brilliant response, and we've got almost 200 profiles. So we're now sort of looking through it, and it's amazingly rich, very useful. So we're working through that, and there's all sorts of people across the university who are interested in it, actually, the different sort of aspects of student experience and improving that. So once we've analysed that data, we're going to sort of share it around and do something useful with it. Okay. So this is just an example. I don't know whether it will show up, but this is the sort of thing that students have done for us. And as part of this exercise, actually, so this one actually is anonymised because we're very mindful that we don't want to be sort of sharing people's data, in a way that they hadn't foreseen. So this is an anonymised version of a maths student at level 1, and he's studying to be able to improve his career prospects. Actually, wants to go into teaching, needs that maths degree, So that's one example. And as part of this exercise, we actually asked students to send us a photo of their study space if they wanted to.
Right. We like study spaces. We've had some great ones, haven't we, HJ?
Yes.
Yes.
So here we are. I'm just going to show these. So this is it's a desk and a notice board. Looks good to me. Quite a lot going on in that space.
Very organised.
Very organised.
Unlike my office.
This is I think a corner of somebody's bedroom probably.
Yeah.
So this might be quite a common scenario.
Yeah.
And this is quite minimalist. It's an iPad on what looks like a windowsill or a shelf. So
And headphones, good.
Headphones, yeah, nice
Important
and
for
clear.
going to tutorials.
So there's another bedroom one here. So just a nice little organised, clear, neat study space in the corner of the bedroom there. We've got some...
It'll come TMA time. And
Do
then it'll
people
got
ever
some
send in
drinks
really
there.
messy study spaces or?
Well, now we move to the sofa.
Ah, yes.
So somebody, well, they look quite chilled to me, but they're actually reading and
Panicking
studying.
inside.
Well, that's it. And books all around the wall. So that looks like a really lovely space to me. And then the other one I wanted to share is actually out in the garden. So it's table and chairs, drink to hand. So this might be my ideal study space, I think.
Well, HJ studied the most of his degree on the bus, didn't you?
Yes, perhaps we'll have some pictures, but we had a great picture that we'd like to show you from Sally as well. So she sent in a picture of her study buddy to our Twitter at Student Hub Live. So it's great to see everyone's study space and study buddies as well.
Oh, that's lovely. I love dogs.
I'm a cat person.
No, I like
to
dogs.
study.
Dogs are much better. for
Cat on
studying.
my keyboard all the
Yeah,
time
they're
when
a
I'm
nightmare,
studying.
and they sit on all your papers exactly
Yeah.
where you want to look.
Jack Russell that sits on my keyboard if he
Really?
gets half a chance.
How does he get on your desk?
He jumps, if I go out the room, he jumps on the seat and then on the desk.
Wow, naughty.
Most unusual study space I think we've seen from the panel so far was somebody who's on a warship.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
one was one from an
Because we've got
activity.
a lot of students who study in the forces, don't we?
Yes, yeah. No, so that was a really interesting one.
I studied on coach yesterday on
Yeah.
the way up here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other piece of prop we've got here as well is an activity that we did. It's very similar to this activity that Catherine's talking about, the profiling, which was our very first activity last year for the panel, and it was a study habits and hacks and workarounds. I know it was really, we got the most amazing, rich content back from students who went into. We basically asked them. We wanted to ask them not about what they liked or disliked about how you study with us, but how you behave. And we really were interested in your behaviour within a particular environment, specifically the digital environment, because often, again, we make assumptions about how everybody uses things in a very similar way. And the information that came back, we're still in the process, so we're working on a big project, which you will find out more about in the future, but it's about, your behaviour within a digital environment is really important to us, and what there is in that is that what can we change or change for you, but also what can you work with us on? And one of the things that came out of that is what we're calling these digital personas. And these are basically the different ways that our students, very small, but it's just an example, the way the students from that particular survey, they categorize themselves into these categories of how they behave. So, for instance, you've got some students who are think of digital as digital about being connecting, so looking for more information, digital as a sort of creating societies. But there are some people who will do that in one context, but they will also shut down all of the tabs that's possible because it's all distracting and things. Yeah. And that's the thing is that sort of trying to understand the reality of, okay, if you're this kind of person when you're studying, but you're this kind of person somewhere else, but what can we do to try and bring those together? But we're going to be doing far more research into this and trying to again work on this project with real students in mind.
Brilliant, excellent. Okay, so what advice can we give students about thinking about taking their first step in volunteering then?
Well, personally, as a student that likes to volunteer, I would say give it a go. If you see something advertised,
If you've got enough time.
if you've got enough time, it could be something small, something online, or it could be just a single day up at campus attending a workshop. Is go for it.
Yeah.
Once you're there, you'll find out if you like it.
And what would your advice be?
I think I would just like to say thank you for everybody who does volunteer for our panel, and actually we really value your input, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, and it's fun, you know. It's fun for us, and it's fun for you guys. And I mean, it's not just us about picking your brains and getting all of the good stuff out of there. It is actually genuinely about partnership and genuinely about dialogue, and making that happen.
Well, I'm going to put the Make Club on my to-do list because I think that's a really good idea. So I will
You
be
can find it if you put in OU Make Club on Facebook.
OU Make Club. Okay, let's all join that. Lovely. Right. Everyone is different and individual, and we've got a session a bit later about learning styles. HJ is going to put a link in the chat to that. So if you want to go and take the quiz in advance of the session with David Healy, you can have a look at what kind of learner you are. And again, there's sort of links to what you're saying, but you can feed back to us in the studio about all of that and think about how it's going to impact on your learning. Thank you all for coming and telling us about the various ways that students can volunteer. Do give it a go. It gives you a great insight. You learn loads and get to connect with other OU students. In our later session, we'll be talking about the Students' Association in more details and also outlining a few of the ways that you can get involved with the various clubs and societies there. We're going to give you another video now, which is our campus tour with Dan Weinbrand, and then we have a session about the history of the OU. In the library, there's lots of things in the library that are fabulous, but one of them is the archives department, and Ruth's going to come along and give us a sort of history of the OU and show us some really interesting things that you may or may not have seen before. So join us in a few minutes for that.